think of it this way. When we're first offering a product for sale, what happens is we think that the money is measuring our value, but the money isn't measuring your value. The money exchange is for your product. So imagine your product being next to you, and the conversation is about this product, and the money exchange is about the product, not about you. Because if I feel like I'm exchanging me for the value of the money, now I worry and it comes out in my presentation. My belief needs to be, I am valuable and you can choose my product.
All right, welcome back, guys. It's Parker with UPBEAT. So thankful to have you here listening in. And we are joined today by an awesome guest, Ann Washburn. Ann, how are you doing?
I'm fantastic. How are you doing, Parker?
I'm doing great. And I'm really excited for this episode. You know, you were recently on a podcast with one of my good friends, Braden Belknap, on his podcast, Journey to Authenticity. How did that go?
That was amazing. Braden and his wife both do that together, and they're amazing. It was so much fun. So yeah, I loved it. So I'm thrilled to get that he introduced me to you, because looking at yours and your audience and everything you're doing, I just think that's fantastic. It's so needed in our world.
Thank you. Yeah, and I'm excited to have you and very grateful that they introduced us, because I don't think I've ever had a quote unquote body language expert on the show before. And I've been doing this, you know, almost 6 years. We're coming up on 250 episodes. And when I heard that Braden had a great conversation with you, I'm like, oh, that would for sure be a good fit for UPBEAT and for the listeners here. So thanks for making time.
Oh, absolutely. I'm excited about it.
So if you don't mind taking a quick, minute, 2-3 minutes to introduce yourself to the listeners here and give kind of a rundown of your background, like what got you interested in being a body language expert.
Oh, absolutely. My background is actually my educational background initially was mechanical engineering. So I went through school in mechanical engineering. I worked in explosives and flight simulation when I graduated. And
wow.
So, yeah, it was pretty fun. I did military explosive projects, and I did, military flight simulation, but 2 different companies. And one of the reasons I went into engineering was because I didn't know how to communicate with people. And it was a very safe place to be, that I didn't have to interact with a lot of people. But I got married, had kids. And as my kids got older, I realized how bad I was at how low my confidence was, how bad I was at communicating, and how much I avoided interactions with people. And it was getting really bad, and it was affecting my children. And so it got to the point one time about 14 years ago, almost 14 years ago now, that I had sent the kids to school, and I was just sitting in the living room in my pajamas, and I was so discouraged, because I'm like, I've done all these things. I build these cool flight simulators. I care about my kids, and yeah, I'm always in trouble with people. I didn't want to answer the door. I didn't want to talk to anybody because they were always mad at me. And I'm like, what is the reason for this? And so if you can believe this, only 14 years ago, we just had a few channels on our television, and I had to get close to the television to change them. It's really changed a lot in the last 14 years, but right. There's nothing on, and I'm just flipping through the channels, and I come across this interview with there's like 10 celebrities, and all the celebrities are standing up, and they've got these different poses on. And the interviewers taking turns asking each of them questions. And I remember I stood up in my living room, and I'm like, I wonder what it feels like to stand the way those celebrities are standing. And I stood up, and I'm like, okay, let's see. Their shoulders are like this, their chin's like this, their pose like this. And I went, oh, that feels so weird. I would hate to be like that. But the thought ran through my head. It said, do they stand like that because they're celebrities, or are they celebrities because they stand like that? And that question wouldn't leave my head. So I began researching body language. And that took me down a long rabbit hole of psychology and how our brain works, how our body works, what the connections are between those. And it took me into this new world, if you will. And I realized that a big part of my low confidence was the messages I was giving to people, because everybody picks up on body language. We all see body language. We all, at a subconscious level, pay attention to it, but we don't know what we're looking at. And we, more importantly, don't know what messages that we're sending to other people. And so I got hooked up with the company that I currently work with, 3 Key Elements, and I learned deep dive everything about body language. I have spent thousands of hours understanding it. But along that path, what happened is it changed me. It changed the way people interact with me. It changed the messages I send out. And every little change I made upgraded my results in my world. And they kept upgrading and upgrading and upgrading. And so at this point, I've done a TEDx talk. I've been on national news. I've been on thousands of different podcasts, radio, TV, all because people are fascinated with how to upgrade themselves. And so in our world, I love that I just left the engineering world and I jumped into this scary world of working with people, which is something that I thought I would never do, all because I realized the connection and the power of understanding the messages that are coming out that we don't understand or pay attention to that we're sending to people.
Love that breakdown. Thank you. Yeah, that definitely shares with the listeners what we're going to get into today. And not to just totally gloss over, your TEDx talk that you did, like that was a big deal one. And to your point, how people find it fascinating, like that one, I did the same area of TEDx in Idaho Falls, but your video is like about to hit 2 million views, I think, which is incredible. So it shows how many people are listening to this and wanting to grow in that regard.
Right. And there's a lot of TED Talks about body language, but what made mine unique was showing the connection between our subconscious programming and our body language. And if you can interrupt, if you want to, so really quick,
yeah.
we have a belief system that we take on as we're growing up. And this belief system actually has nothing to do with truth or lies or errors. It has to do with what made my world safe, what makes my world work. And so our subconscious will actually take on beliefs that are harmful to us, that sabotage our results as an adult, but they kept me safe as a child. So for example, I had beliefs that were in my subconscious that had to do with nobody likes me. People are dangerous. I'm never going to interact or never going to be on a stage. I had a lot of beliefs about me being less than all the people around me. Another one was it's my job to make sure the people around me feel good. And if they're upset, I need to change until they feel better. Well, all of these things were sabotaging my results as an adult, as a parent, in the workforce, just on a personal level. I was sabotaging myself all the time. And those beliefs that are in my subconscious, I don't know how to access and interrupt them so that I can change them. And that's where body language can actually come in, because your body language is mostly run by your subconscious program where those beliefs are. So people are always sending out messages in their body language that shows their beliefs. And they're watching for people to validate those beliefs. So if I send out the message, oh, people don't like me, and they treat me like they don't like me, my subconscious goes, yep, see, that is a validated program. And so if I can interrupt that, guess what? I can upgrade my results super fast. So everybody listening today, you're going to have the ability to begin interrupting some of your programs so you can get more results that you're wanting instead of results that keeps supporting childhood beliefs that kept you safe in certain instances. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it definitely does. And so I think that's already a great tool for people, just to increase like awareness, almost like to be more consciously looking for this in their lives, and working on building that ability to make the interruptions happen and then make the changes necessary. And this actually is a great segue to one thing I was really excited to asking you about on the show today. A lot of people listening, including myself, by the way, we are creators, we're solopreneurs, we've got our side hustles, things that we're doing on the side for an extra income, right? And as creatives, a lot of the time we get so wrapped up in like the craft and what we do that we lose out on our ability to like talk to people, like what you've explained that you've overcome. You've worked through that too. And most importantly, I think we struggle like selling what we do to someone else, and we almost downplay like what it is we have to offer. So I guess, what are your thoughts on that, and what can we do to try to, I guess, improve in that arena of being able to sell our services more confidently?
If you think of it, we have our comfort zone. We have where we're comfortable, where we feel safe, where things feel familiar, where we feel like we're in control. But in that space, there's these beliefs that I talked about. And so I can have beliefs that money is bad, or that and I can adopt beliefs as I'm starting my solopreneur, like you said, as I'm starting a business. I can adopt beliefs from other people. And that usually comes from their fears. So like when we say, hey, I'm going to start my own business, then we're going to have our mom say things to us like, oh, people who start their own business live poor their whole lives. Or you talk to the next door neighbor and they're like, oh, I knew a person who started their own business and then this negative thing happened. And so we start to pick up beliefs along the road as we're creating whatever we feel called to create. And so what'll happen now, all these beliefs feel familiar. And when I step out of my comfort zone, so to speak, to take a step to grow, because my comfort zone dictates how much room I have for success. So if my comfort zone is small, I don't have a lot of room for success. So when I'm trying to grow, I have to step outside that comfort zone. And my subconscious goes, ooh, that's not safe out there because it's unfamiliar. Because it's so-and-so, it wasn't safe out there because it doesn't match what I believe in this belief system. So when I step out, my subconscious wants to keep me safe. And so to keep me safe, it says, oh, you should go back to where it's comfortable. And if that means that when I start talking about my craft or my product or my service that I'm offering to people, my subconscious will start talking to me and it'll say, see, they don't really want what you have, or see, they think it's too expensive, or see that they'll use, your subconscious will use that language to try to get you to go back to your comfort zone where it's safe, familiar, and in control, right? But what I want is this big of success. When we start a business, we don't start it because we want this big of success, a little tiny one. We want a ginormous one. I mean, most of us do. What do you think, Parker? Do you want a ginormous or a teeny tiny success?
Yeah, I think we get into it to expand and grow and, make it something that we're, like you said, perfectly called, that we feel called to do. So we want it to be bigger so we have more impact and more reach. So that's a good point. We start out wanting it to be big.
Yeah. And you'll see this in people when they talk about their business. Anybody who's watching this, you'll see my hands, but I'll try to describe it for anybody who's just listening. You'll see this in when somebody's describing their business, they use what I call T-Rex hands. They keep their hands in this narrow little box around their body when they're talking about it. And they'll say things like, oh yeah, we're going to have a big impact. and you'll see their hands like hit invisible walls right here next to them. And it's like, I'm going to have big impact, and they'll even come back smaller. And see, I had to choose early on where I was going to use my body language skills, because you can use them for good or for evil. And you can use them, well, how I chose to use them was to help people find their amazingness. So one of the things I specialize in is I will ask people questions, and then I listen to their answers and I watch their answers. And when their answers in their body language don't match the answers that come out of their mouth, I know that that's where there's a program that's an opportunity for growth. And so when somebody's saying, yeah, we're going to have ginormous growth, or we're going to have a big impact, and they hit this invisible wall and they come back smaller, that invisible wall is a belief that doesn't match the big goal. And I love how you said that. When creatives start a business, one of the things they're doing is they want to become better versions of themselves as they're making and growing this business, which I totally resonate with, because that's what I've done, is become a bigger, better, brighter version of myself. Every day I'm still working on that. And so you want to find these spots where you're limited, where your success zone is smaller than is needed for your goal. And so it's really helpful if you have somebody else that sees it, that you trust. And so that's why I do what I do. But you can notice it for yourself. When you're talking to people, do you keep your hands in the T-Rex zone, or do you let yourself extend your arms sometimes? I mean, it would be weird to just walk around talking like this with big arms, but some people really do. You know, you ask them directions and they're like, oh yeah, go down there, all the way at the end of the block, turn left. And other people are like, go to the end of the block, and they don't unbend their arms at all. Do you see the difference in the level of freedom that represents? And so we can practice this in our everyday life by, even if you don't want to do it around people, when you're by yourself, practice in front of a mirror saying, yeah, I want my business to have a big impact, and hold your arms all the way out. Not because you want to look silly, because that's a misconception with body language, is people think, oh, I've got to look weird to use body language. It's not that at all. When you're alone, practice what it feels like to extend your arms. Try it, Parker. Put your arms all the way out and say, hey, my podcast reaches millions.
My podcast reaches millions, y'all.
Yeah. Okay. So can I mentor you for just a second, Parker?
Go for it. Yeah.
So notice what you did. You went big arms, and then you bent your elbows just a little. There was this little, oh, that feels weird. And we all do it. We all do it.
Yeah.
But if I want to reach that program, I need to show my brain what I want. And so I do it again, and I go, no, my podcast reaches millions, and hold it for just a second for your brain to go, oh, really?
So it's like that. I mean, we've heard of power pose, like the power pose thing. It's the kind of that same concept where, like, before you go on and speak at an event or something, to like just do that pose to give you, but it's the same thing where you like hold your arms up and work on holding it. And it's kind of merging affirmations too with that. Cause you're saying, you know, my podcast reaches millions, and doing the arm reaching out. All
that you just said. Yes. And on top of that, you're finding the glitch. So it's not enough just to stand with a power pose. You want to find the glitch. So try saying different things. I want my podcast to reach millions. Okay, I can feel that. Now, am I okay with that? And you feel, what is the emotion that hiccups when you think about that? Or what are the thoughts that hiccup? And when you find those, now you can adjust that program. So your body language isn't just for a power pose. It's to find the hiccup. Because if I can find the hiccup, I can do something different. You know, it's funny that even people, if you ask them to look in the mirror and just to say their name, Just to say your name. Just say, I am Parker Kane. So try it.
I am Parker Kane.
Okay. Almost everybody. And it's interesting. It's different now because we watch ourselves on video so much. People can't hold still after they say that. They will wiggle somewhere. And where they wiggle tells you where their hiccup is about themselves.
Interesting.
Because that's one of our most important relationships, is our relationship with ourselves. And if I can't improve my relation, and our relationship with ourselves comes before our relationship with others. Like I do free webinars once a month. And this last month, the webinar I did talked about this hierarchy of relationships. So if I'm struggling with my relationships with other people, which is business, right? I have to work on my relationship with myself, because that's a supporting relationship to my relationship with others.
Yeah, true. Well, and that reminded me earlier too, like when you said people talk with the T-Rex arms, it just is like, I'm guilty of this, and probably so many entrepreneurs are, business owners. When people ask us what we do, even just verbally, but I'm sure our hands are doing it too, but don't say, oh yeah, I run an amazing podcast and it's been going on this long and like I've had killer people on it. It's been amazing. Then be like, oh, I mean, I run a podcast kind of on the side, but my 9 to 5 is blank. And we immediately downplay everything it is that we're working on.
Yeah, we're not owning those pieces of ourselves. So to go back to the analogy of our comfort zone has to be big enough for the success that we want. When that kind of language is me running back to my comfort zone. You just asked me a question to step out of my comfort zone, but I'm going to answer it in a way that I can go back instead of, yes, I do this and I own it. And you can use the word and if you really need to talk about your 9 to 5 at the same time. But the power is in owning it, even for a couple of seconds. So yes, I run this amazing podcast. I've had awesome people on there and I'm outside my comfort zone.
Yeah.
And this is my 9 to 5. Don't immediately run back to the smaller comfort zone, the smaller success zone.
Yeah. Well, that's an amazing thing that I think so many people could learn from. I mean, I'm more so recently getting involved with a lot of creators on like TikTok and doing live streaming and stuff. And I see this exact thing in every single one of them, where we downplay what it is that we're building. And so when it comes to, I guess, the selling process, I mean, it doesn't mean we don't believe in what we're doing, but are you saying to be more confident and to easier get the sale, like we have to just believe more in ourselves, essentially?
Well, that's a great question, because the reality is people don't buy things, they buy people. So if you're selling a service or you're selling a product, people are checking in with who you are. They're checking in with how you talk about the product, how you talk about the service. They're measuring you, especially in our world where everything is so visual, because we can see everything. Just like if you go on Amazon, there's all these people that all they do all day long on their videos is show products, because a person showing a product sells more products than just a picture and an explanation of the product. And it's like my husband has his own small business, which isn't so small anymore, because he created a product that the miners and the gold enthusiasts all want, because it's just this gold pan that's super simple for anybody to use. So hikers that have ever been like, oh, I wonder if there's gold in this river, this is a pan they can take with them, they can actually use. They don't have to be trained how to use it. Well, he's built a brand of that product, but the brand was not built until that brand is not built until the relationship happened first. He had to market himself before anybody cared about the brand. And that's what we're doing when we're building a big business. We start by introducing ourselves. They need to relate to you first before the product. So you see this all over, like you said, in TikTok lives and anywhere we're on social media doing live streams. You're watching the people. How much do they believe in themselves? And so if we want to pay attention to how do I change when I switch to talking about money? How do I change? Do I talk about money and I shrink? This is the easiest way to check in with ourselves. Do I shrink? So do my shoulders come in? Do I bend my knees? Do I keep my hands closer to myself? Do I have more hiccups in the cadence of my voice? Do I shrink when I talk about money, or do I stay the same? And we want to practice being able to just notice, not shrinking. Hold yourself at this is one place that if you're going to talk about money and you don't know what to do with your body language, practice holding still while you talk about money. Hold, in other words, have fewer wiggles, because wiggles are tells. They're like poker tells when we're talking about our product. If I am going to switch to this is the cost, hold your body language the same as it was right before you switched.
I think that's amazing. And I actually had kind of a follow-up question to it, just around balancing, like not balancing being more confident, but not being like over the top and cocky. And I think you kind of answered it with, remaining the same, not necessarily going above and beyond, but to just be mindful that you're not shrinking.
Yeah, because most people, when you're first starting, they'll shrink. But then the next thing that'll happen is they'll get too big when they talk about money. And it's like, try to stay the same. Wherever you were at right before you switched to money, see if you can stay the same. So the same big, the same, don't get your voice higher pitched. Don't start standing up on your toes. Don't shrink down. Don't get smaller. See if you can just stay the same so that what you're talking about are your words when you start talking about money doesn't show that you're worried about the money. Think of it this way. When we're first offering a product for sale, what happens is we think that the money is measuring our value. But the money isn't measuring your value. The money exchange is for your product. So imagine your product being next to you, and the conversation is about this product, and the money exchange is about the product, not about you. Because if I feel like I'm exchanging me for the value of the money, now I worry, and it comes out in my presentation. I start feeling like, oh, do they like me? Will they accept me? Their money decides if I'm acceptable. But that's not a belief that will help me grow into the success level that I want. My belief needs to be, I am valuable and you can choose my product. Not, am I valuable? Please choose my product.
I absolutely love that. And I can already tell that's going to be a really cool clip to to break down and share on social media and stuff. So thank you for that. That was really well put.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I only know that because I've had to stumble through it over the years, because I caught myself talking to people about mentoring or about trainings or coming to their business. And I would catch myself shrinking. And then they would go, oh, I have to think about it. And I'm like, what did I do? And so I would listen to myself and I would notice the shrink, or I would notice the get too big. So staying the same so that we send the message, I already choose me. I choose me. You don't have to choose me. You get to decide if you choose my product. I'm already chosen. I'm already worthy. I'm already worthwhile. All of those things I get to decide, not my customers.
I love that. Yeah, it's really what I think is unique about this, just because I've looked up stuff on YouTube about body language before, and usually it's always it's more focused on the smiles or the nodding, just when you're selling someone, just smile and nod, they say
Yeah.
that. This is really more about like subconscious stuff and what we observe and personal development and harnessing authentic energy, all kind of packaged up with body language.
Yeah, absolutely. To me, body language is almost unuseful if you don't understand what you're using it for. If it's just about this smile, or this is what people are saying to you, or like the people that call me and say, hey, we want you to come judge the jury that's going to come in. Look at their body language for us. Tell us who we should choose. It's like, okay, you can do all of that. But the power in it is finding your own hiccups. It's how to push yourself out of that comfort zone. And you can't push yourself so far out that you feel unsafe. You have to be in the growth zone. So there's a comfort zone, there's a growth zone, and then out here there's a danger zone. But we don't want the danger zone. We want the growth zone. And I can use my body language to get to that growth zone and own it. And then when I own it, my new comfort zone is this big. Then I step out of that one and I do it little by little, and I become who I'm wanting to become. And my business gets represented the way I want it to get represented. And my room for success gets big enough for my success.
Yeah, I'm super excited about all of this, just for me personally to work on. But I know people listening, they're going to hear this and have things that they can improve on too. As far as when you do find the glitch, which might be the title of the episode, just because it's sticking it around in my head. But when you do find the glitch, like, what do you do from that point? Do you write it down and just like for example, with the podcast, when I raised my arms and I went down and then, immediately started thinking of all the excuses why I'm never going to get 1 million followers. Do you just pen to paper write down all those things that you were thinking and then just actionably like be more mindful of that, so you try to think more positively about those negative thoughts?
Before I answer that, let me address the underlying question that some of the people are going to have and that I can hear in your voice.
Yeah.
Because and you can tell me if I'm wrong, but there's this underlying thing that it's like, is it really useful to put pen to paper? And can I really just choose this? Because I've tried it in the past and it doesn't really do any of that. And okay, here's somebody, I'm just doing it wrong. I mean, I might not have the exact words, but that's what I was seeing behind your question. And I'm betting. So are we on the same page?
Yeah, I think so. Because I'm trying to figure out, when you do find the glitch, what do you do to be more conscious of it, like moving forward?
Absolutely. And I'm going to answer that, but I have to preface so that the people that are going to say that answer is too easy or I've already tried it, they'll hold on for just a minute because it's so powerful.
Yeah.
So where I'm going with that is that it can feel trite or silly to put things on paper sometimes. And so what a lot of people will do is they'll say, oh, well, I don't need to write it down. I'll just think about it. Well, here's the problem. When you have this big idea for a business, okay? So I'm going to use you as the example since you're here, Parker, okay?
Perfect.
So here you are, your podcast currently is this size, okay? So we'll just pick a size. It's this size, the size of a beach ball. And you want it to be the size of a giant orb, the one that you can get in and roll down the hill. Those ones. I can't think what they're called, but we rented one for my son's birthday one time, and it was awesome because you get in the center and it's enormous and you blow it up so big. So you want it to be that big, right? But so if you think about it, the beach ball space is where your brain is currently wired. All the neurotransmitters in your brain are wired for this size of business. Well, you want to rewire for this size of business. So when we say, I'll just think about it, we're going to use the neurotransmitters that are already in our brain, which are wired for the small business. When I write it down, I'm helping my brain start new neural pathways. I'm helping my brain start a new path that matches the big circle, the big sphere. So writing it down has the effect of helping us get past our current programming and begin a rewiring. Because that's what it is. We got all these wires in our head. So if I only think about it, I am going to stay with my current wiring. If I write it down, I'm giving myself a chance to get out of current wiring. Do you follow me on that?
Yes.
And so that's why I say some people are going to have that thought that what's the point? Just writing it down, it's the same as just thinking about it. But it's not. That's the thing. So yes, being willing to put pen to paper and say, and be willing to ask some hard questions, because questions are the magic in rewiring. Questions are huge. So ask the hard question. Why am I afraid to have 1 million followers? What would people think of me if I had 1 million followers? But ask it this way. What am I afraid people would think if I have 1 million followers? What am I avoiding to save myself from 1 million followers? Ask yourself these questions in enough ways on paper that you can see what your belief is. You can see what the hiccup is, the glitch, like we said, right? So yes, put your pen to paper. Most of the time, the things that we're afraid of are not true. We've just found evidence of them, so we are trying to believe them. So
we convince ourselves of it.
Yes. So for example, my belief that all people are mean and that I should avoid them and that I'll always be in trouble and that it's not true. I've met lots and lots of really wonderful people, but I tried to find evidence to support that because I had once found a little piece of evidence. And so I tried to build more evidence. Well, I need to build evidence of a new belief. So as I'm writing these lies down, because that's what I can look at them as, the things that I'm afraid of are not actually true, I can now be clear that I want to choose something else. And so on the other side of the paper, I go, well, I choose this. This is what I choose. And I'm going to look for evidence of that instead of the negative. Does that make sense?
Yes, it does. And I think this is one of those times where like, I'll tell the listeners to kind of rewind it and like listen to it again and actually start doing this, you know, because so often we hear advice like this and then we just keep going on to the next thing and it takes a space way in the back of our heads. And it's like, this could literally be life-changing for people if they actually start working on this, you know, and I'm excited to do it myself and just, I know it's going to help me. So I'm hoping that people listening, you know, do the effort to make the change.
Well, this is what I tell people. In fact, I quoted myself. One time I said, new knowledge has an expiration date. Without new action, usually within 72 hours, the knowledge will expire and have to be relearned. So when we learn something and then we don't take action and we let it get layered over, we're destined to have to relearn it somewhere down the road. So action is that key to actually starting the rewiring. Writing things down is an action that helps with the rewiring. Body language is an action that helps with the rewiring. Action causes rewiring, not default. So new action is what we want. So we want to take action on our new knowledge. Would it be okay if I give your listeners a gift? Would that be okay?
Yeah, let's do it.
Okay. So 8 years ago, I recorded a CD called The Buckets List. So it's about buckets and things that we're afraid of. And in this audio, I talk about this is a concept that we can take action on. because we were just talking about that it's important to have 3 things on your calendar, not 1, but 3 that scare you. Because when you do the first one, if there's 2 more that are still on your calendar, it'll keep you going. But if you only have 1 thing that's on your calendar that scares you, when you do it, you will feel like you have permission to hide and you won't go do something else again for a long time. But if there's already something else on my calendar to keep me moving, and so I do the first one and then I add a third one before I get to the second one. So I keep 3 things on my calendar that will scare me. I will always be moving my way outside of my comfort zone and enlarging. I like to make up words. And making bigger, enlarging our success capacity. So if you want to increase your success capacity, and so I'd love to offer these. I'll give them 3 audio downloads that they can listen to. One is how to manage the negative comments in your head. One is how to get out of your perfectionist and move forward. And the third one is this that I just said, is how to get past the fear, relabel it, and how to keep things that will grow you, that scare you, on your calendar. If that's useful, I will share that with all of your listeners.
Awesome. Do they just go to a website or email you, or how do they do that?
I'll give you a link that they can just click on, enter. They don't have to download anything. They'll just put their email and I'll send them right to their email box and they can listen to them.
Okay, sweet. Well, thank you for that. Yeah, that'll be huge for them. And everybody, make sure you check the show notes, the descriptions, the website, because that's where I'm going to have everything for this episode. But Ann Washburn, thanks so much for hopping on here, taking some time to just drop a ton of value, because that's pretty much what this episode was. We'll have to have you again where we maybe explore more of your story and all the ins and outs. But this was like a really jam-packed with value episode. So thank you.
So can I just say one last thing?
Go for it. Yeah.
Okay. So you guys that are listening, so listen to me, the reason you had the desire to build what you're building is not just for the huge value it's going to give to everybody that interacts with it and interacts with you. It's because you are meant to be more than you currently are. So don't be afraid to stretch out and let off your old skin and grow into that new one, because you're so needed. Our world is bombarded with artificial nowadays. It's bombarded with fakeness. And the passion that you're feeling inside of you is so needed. Please don't stop. I know that I had things try to stop me every step of the way, and it matters so much that you keep going. So thanks for answering that call, and keep becoming more than who you are today, because I believe in you.
Wow, that was powerful. Thank you so much. I appreciate you, Ann.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me, Parker. I appreciate you.
Of course. And we'll do a quick traditional thing for UPBEAT, and I'll do a beatbox with your name in it.
I would love that. That's awesome. Okay.
Let's do it. Thank you for this, and thank you, Ann Washburn. Thank you.
I love it so much. Thank you. Okay, nobody's ever done that for me before. Thank you.
Awesome. Of course.